Hi everyone, it's Christina from CEP Studios on Etsy. I wanted to do a tutorial for you because it's been actually a pretty long time since I did one, and I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I have shown you before how to insert your images into a styled frame and also how to overlay your images directly on the white space of a styled stock photo. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make it look kind of realistic, that you have your work underneath something on the work surface. And I'm going to use this little saucer over here. What I have going on is my current state of mind. I don't do winter. If you can hear it in my voice, I've got a little bit of a cold, and I think everyone's getting kind of sick and tired of all the ice and the wind and frigid temperatures, so it's not very fun. But I'm going to flatten the image. I just hit Control E to flatten that so that I can use my Move tool over here. I will click on the flattened layer, bring it over to the image I want, and drop it in. If I don't drop it directly onto the image, it's just going to go right back to where it was. It still stays there, but unless you drop it directly onto the photo, it really has nowhere for it to go. So just make sure you're moving, when you move it, you drop it right onto the new image. I'm going to transform this with Control T, and I will hit the Shift key to keep the same ratio for that. Actually, that looks a little bit small, so let's make it a little bigger again. If you don't hit if you don't hit the Shift key, it will allow you to do things like something like that. Stretch it out funny, unintentionally, of course, but you don't want to do that. You want to keep your ratio looking as it is meant to be. So I will place this, let's give it a little bit of an angle, because usually, I don't know about you, but I don't usually lay my papers straight up and down. So if I give it a little bit of an angle, there we go. You see how this has placed it in the image, but it sort of looks like it is floating over the saucer over here. Uh, we're gonna take that away and make it look like the saucer is actually over the document or the printable here. What I will do is use my blending options, and if you go back to my overlay video, you can see how I do this and how I figure out what the right thing to do is. But I'm going to add a drop shadow and a gradient, just very slight, to make it look a little bit more realistic, like it's sitting on this desk. I won't go into it here because I want to keep it sort of short, but do go back to that video about overlaying your images into a styled stock photo if you are unsure of how to do this. There we go. So I have a gradient and a drop shadow, and I'm going to show you why I have to do what I do. When you use a drop shadow, if you use a mask, say I wanted to mask out the coffee cup, if you use a mask with a drop shadow, it's almost like it starts burning away at the image. It's really strange. I don't know why it does that. It's not the gradient, it's only on drop shadows. So if anyone knows or has figured out why, I would love to know. It kind of drives me a little bit crazy, but I'm going to delete that mask because I don't want it there. I don't want to apply it. Just delete it. So we're back to just the single image there. So the trick is to make a duplicate. Control J will copy the layer that you're on. So I went back to my original and I made a copy. I'm going to bring it over my my document here, or printable, and I will actually add a mask on this layer. I'll hit Control I to cover the entire thing, and what I will do is just bring back that coffee cup. So using a brush, and I always tend to use a pretty soft brush, I will bring the coffee cup back in, being sort of careful around the edges. Now, I want to bring the shadow in too, because it would still have a shadow over the paper, but not quite as much. I think that shadow is a little bit too harsh. So I'm going to take some of that back, and I'll show you what I'll do next. Because see here how it sort of, I mean, that itself looks pretty realistic. I think that looks like you have something on the desk there, but we'll make it look a little more realistic because You see how the shadow here is sort of thicker, and over here I just left a little bit. If I added more shadow back in here from the original image, I would lose my paper here. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'll use my eyedropper tool and grab one of the shadows that's, there we go, one of the shadows that's it's naturally casting, and I will use a relatively small brush again. And I'm going to paint that in. Go a little smaller. Oops, I went a little bit over there, more than I wanted to, but we can fix that. So let's see. And what I will do, I'll actually drop my opacity to somewhere that it looks, you know, not an exact match to what's there, but pretty realistic, like it could be on there or casting that shadow. So I think that actually looks pretty good. I might darken over here a tiny bit more because that shadow there is just a little bit darker than what we have going on there. And I will just clean this up a little bit with a mask. Still using my brush tool. And I'm going to clean up this area where it sort of went a little bit over and I got a little crazy. And clean up, take it off of the saucer. And there we go. Now your image is no longer just floating over your coffee cup, but you actually have placed it underneath and you've given it a little bit of a shadow to make it look more realistic and match what you already have in the photo. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and remember you can find this image and many others on CEP Studios on Etsy. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.